Good morning, everyone. My name is Payal Patel. I'm a director here at Plug and Play and lead our Houston efforts. Thank you so much for joining us for day 2 of our winter summit. During this energy session, you will get to meet the 13 startups that participate in batch 7 of our program, as well as get to see the progress that they've made. As a reminder, after the session at 1 p.m. Pacific time, we will also have a networking session on the remote platform. If you want, you could take a picture of this slide so that you can navigate to remote afterwards. But don't worry, we'll also show this slide at the end with the QR code so that you can easily navigate to remote. In case you've never been to one of our networking sessions, there will be multiple floors that you can navigate to meet the startups in the mobility and energy cohorts. On the energy floor, the 13 startups presenting here today will each have a table, as well as 3 startups from our international program that we thought you might enjoy meeting. Here is our agenda for this session. After some opening remarks, Brock Smith of Evergy Ventures will be our keynote speaker. I'll then get to announce the Corporate Partner Award winner for this cycle, and then I'll pass it over to my colleague Noreen, who will MC the startup pitches as well as moderate the Q&A panel sessions with the startups. This is something new that we're piloting with the Plug and Play Energy team. So if you have any questions as you're watching the startup pitches, feel free to input them in the Q&A box, and Noreen will address them during the startup Q&A panels. And then after some closing remarks, we hope you'll join us for the networking session. As you may know, all of this would not be possible without the support and commitment of our corporate partners. They play an instrumental role in our program by selecting the startups that participate in each batch and then working with them during the duration of the program. So on behalf of all of us here at Plug and Play, we wanted to say a big thank you to our Silicon Valley energy partners. At Plug and Play, I work closely with the oil and gas partners. I came across this slide from McKinsey that I thought I'd share with you. Over the past 15 years, the oil and gas industry has underperformed the S&P 500. Historically, the industry makes about 9% of the market, but at current valuations makes up about 3%. 3%. Given the importance of the industry in fueling transportation, enabling factories all over the world, and being an input to millions of products that consumers consume every day, I see this as a temporary market anomaly. There is an energy transition happening, and consumers are demanding cleaner, affordable fuels. But keep in mind that energy transition will take decades. As these charts show, over the next 20 years, the energy mix will change. Renewables and natural gas will gain market share, largely at the expense of dirty coal. Oil and natural gas will still make up about 60% of the primary energy mix in 20 years. And in many ways, the oil and gas industry is leading the energy transition by making investments in large-scale renewable projects and in investing in R&D to increase the scale and viability of alternative fuels such as hydrogen and biofuels. The world is clearly adopting cleaner forms of energy generation, but that is not enough to tackle climate change. Carbon capture, utilization, and storage technologies are also an important piece in the puzzle. This slide was shared with us earlier in the year by our friends at Climate Impact Capital. It shows the gigatons of carbon emitted by usage. The dotted lines show the 1.5 and 2 degrees C thresholds of carbon needed to meet the Paris Climate Accords. We have about 11 years to meet the 1.5 degree goal. But if we aim for 2 degrees, the timeline is extended and very achievable. The reason I'm sharing this slide is I like the point that our friend Alex Rosenfeld at Climate Impact Capital made earlier in the year. The area between the two lines is a problem. but it is also an opportunity for CCUS startups. Here at Plug and Play, we will continue to monitor, support, and invest in these CCUS startups. And lastly, we thought we'd share some recent funding events that y'all may be interested in. Firstly, Pachama, a forest carbon sequestration monitoring service that tracks how much CO2 is actually captured by forestry offset projects, raised $5 million earlier in the fall, led by Breakthrough Energy Ventures and Amazon. Breakthrough Energy Ventures is the investment vehicle of Bill Gates and other billionaires around the world. ChargePoint, the EV charging network, is going public via a merger with a special purpose acquisition company called Switchback Energy. The merger is expected to close by the end of the year, and ChargePoint will have a valuation of close to $2.4 billion. And finally, Validere, a Calgary-based startup with a large Houston presence, raised $15 million led by Wing VC with participation from Greylock and Sallyport Investments. Validere is a leading informatics platform that enables the energy industry to realize efficiencies through real-time product quality insights. And now it is my pleasure to introduce our keynote speaker, Brock Smith. He is Managing Director at Evergy Ventures. Evergy is a publicly traded utility based in Kansas and is one of our newest founding partners of our new Kansas office. Thank you so much for joining us, Brock. Over to you.
Hey everybody, welcome to Plug and Play Winter Summit keynote session. My name is Brock Smith. I'm a managing director with Evergy Ventures, and I'm really thrilled to be with you today. When Wade and Arch reached out, I couldn't help but be excited about the opportunity to speak with everybody about the energy ecosystem. Plug and Play has been a great partner of ours over the last 3 years. We made that formal recently, with a partnership, but it's been informal during that time as we've navigated the ecosystem, as well as many others, transportation, insurance, et cetera, that kind of have a nice overlap with the energy system. So, I was really excited to join you guys today because I know about the high quality of work that they do, the portfolio companies and the batches that go through Plug and Play, and the types of partnerships that are created with the corporate world on the back end. I believe strongly in the mission of Plug and Play. And so, it was really a great opportunity when he asked me to come speak to you. Hopefully over the next 20 minutes, we'll really get an ability to dive into some of the broader issues at a high level that are going on in the energy ecosystem and understand why some of it's so important for us to handle. And then we'll jump in more to Evergy Ventures and who I am, what I do, and how I'm approaching the space and tackling some of those big issues. So first, Evergy itself is our parent utility company. They have funded, as a single LP, a venture capital group called Evergy Ventures. As a utility, Evergy owns and operates about 40 power plants. The generation mix is pretty diverse. They've got wind, solar, hydro, nuclear, coal, and natural gas power plants, and about 40 of them in total. In addition to that, they have 65,000 miles of transmission and distribution assets, about a fleet of roughly 3,000 vehicles for servicing that distribution grid, a team of about 5,000 people that work directly for the company, in addition to many thousands of contractors that help us operate and maintain the grid outside of that. And then we also have, and we're the first utility in the country to own and operate more than 1,000 electric vehicle chargers in our service territory. So, which we started doing back in 2013. We really, as a utility, have had to figure out how to navigate this energy ecosystem, and that's really thrust us kind of in the central, one of the central players of the transition here, as we all kind of look to see where the world is going and what things are going to look like 10, 15, and 20 years. So from now. So hopefully when we get, through the end of this presentation, you guys will all, one, be encouraged about the future prospects for our world, but two, really understand the mission that we all are mutually involved in ensuring that we have a cleaner future. avoiding some of the impacts that might come if we don't make this transition. So with that, let's hop into it. Sorry, there we go. One thing I want to lay kind of a base ground for right now is what the ecosystem has looked like for the past 130 years and why this transition is so difficult and tremendous and really a complete change of state for much of the industry. One of the first things that's worth noting is that we have centralized generation, or have had historically, right? There's only a few places where power is created efficiently and effectively that can then be transmitted and distributed out to customers. What that means is for most customers on the grid, they're getting their power from 1, 2, or like I said, for our service territory, we have about 40 generating units that distribute power not only to our service territory but beyond. And so how you manage a centralized generation fleet is very different from what we're moving toward today. And I'll talk about that here in a minute. But the second part of that is we have very predictable generation. We know exactly what type of energy output we're going to get when we take a shovel of coal and put it into a coal generation power plant, right? And so we know that inputs equal outputs, and balancing the grid's needs with that type of traditional system is much easier than the way the world is moving to now. A third major challenge is that in the past we had unidirectional power flow, and that's kind of part of being a centralized generation system is power is generated in one area and then flows to the consumers. But in the world we're moving to today, we have consumers that are generating their own power, and they don't always use all the power they have. So the energy grid today, that is going to lead to many problems, as you'll see. Another issue with that is due to limited numbers of points where we're actually generating or making decisions on the grid, there's a much lower cyber threat. And not only are they centralized, but they're generally owned by 1 or 2 main players in a different ecosystem. And so you can manage that threat because you're centralized, but you also have authority to manage and control the types of the access points to different loads or things that might shift the load on the grid. And so in the past, that could help keep things very secure. In addition to that, most of the system was built on analog technologies rather than IoT devices that communicate with one another and are at the edge rather than being in some centralized hub. A couple of final points. One is in the utility industry, we've always had to use power when we create it. And when we don't, we run it into the ground and I'll call it waste it, but really there's some need for overage, but there hasn't been an economical and efficient way to store power except for a few geographic location-based methods that can do that efficiently. And a final point is the industry has been heavily regulated, which has resulted in a few players that end up as monopolies in their territory and really manage the grid for everyone else and generate a large majority of the power. But it also has impacted the ability to make profits. Monopoly should be regulated, and we have to manage that system. But the world we're moving to might not look like that. So the evolving grid, I kind of mentioned this, but it's decentralized and distributed now. We have generation points. You'll see in this picture, there's solar, there's wind. They're not always owned by the utility. They're owned by different customers. They have the ability to consume some of those resources, maybe offsetting their own consumption, but then too, if they produce an excess, in almost every state in the United States, push that power back into the grid, and how they're compensated and for that varies. But at the end of the day, that creates a very different system than we've had before, because the resources are not necessarily owned by the utility, and they're not necessarily even making coordinated decisions with the utility and the power system. So in addition to that, which the fourth bullet point here, maybe I should have had up higher, but the bidirectional power flow. Now we have to manage a system where the consumers are not only consuming, but pushing electricity back into the grid. And all of that is, kind of flows into the second point here, where intermittent resources, which is really to say it's hard to predict the amount of power that you're going to get out of renewable assets like wind and solar. You know, the sun is, you know, shady sometimes, or at different months of the year has different intensities. Wind picks up or slows down throughout the day. While we do generally know what times of day those types of resources are best, it's just not a guaranteed that every single day of the year they're going to be online. And so it's very different than maybe having a nuclear or coal or natural gas plant where you pretty much know when it's running, you're going to get X output. So the way you manage the system has to be quite different. Another item on here is electrification, particularly mobility. You think about, you know, power consumption. An electric vehicle might consume, you know, at a level 2 charger, 7 to 11 kilowatts. Your traditional home at its peak is probably only consuming 3 or 4 kilowatts at a time. So to wrap that around you all of a sudden throw on a car into a home if you have a residential charging device that is level 2, and you've got a new peak for that home that might be 3 times larger than it ever has been in the past. So, you know, you think about electrification and a broad range of those cars being on the grid, and all of a sudden you've got distribution networks that were built to handle 30 homes, and all of a sudden they've got, you know, the equivalent of 120 homes with full penetration on the same grid. It's just creating a whole lot of issues on that front for many players in the space. So in addition to that, you know, we have ongoing climate concerns, which you'll see next, and those are evolving and actually pressuring the industry to move forward in very healthy ways. We have short and long-term storage efficiency issues. While, you know, I kind of talked about the inability to store power and use it later. When we produce it, we have to use it and match supply and demand at the same time. Batteries is almost a game changer in the sense that, you know, now you don't have to necessarily produce it and store it. And some of those intermittencies that you'll see in bullet point 2 can be navigated more easily with efficient storage. And the industry is just starting to get there, frankly. Where we were 10 years ago with some of the renewable generation, solar and storage, and we've all kind of seen how that scaled, we're just starting to get to that point on the storage side. And so I suspect that in the next 10 years, we're going to see a lot more come from that area. 2 other issues that I want to note before moving on: convergence of power and energy. Some of the biggest players historically in the energy sector have been groups like Shell, Total, you know, BP, Chevron, great, you know, energy providers. And now they're really taking a centralized focus on the energy sector, which is putting, in I think a healthy way, pressure on, you know, many of the electric utilities to think about innovation, think about the future of electricity, and keep pace. And then finally the equity issue, balancing the outcomes of the evolving grid for, you know, people in different social classes, demographics, is very difficult. If you think about a community or a home that might be able to island or effectively generate their own power and use the grid only for backup or resiliency, that might shift the cost burden of maintaining the grid, the consumption, because a lot of that's built into consuming kilowatt hours. That might shift much of the maintenance of the grid to people that can't afford to have solar or other types of distributed resources that better manage their energy. And so I think, you know, over the next 10 years, we're going to have to think long and hard about how we ensure equity across those different, you know, vertical strata within demographics. But, you know, the good news is the prize from decarbonization is worth it. I just pulled these up, you know, from news sources from the last week. They're already outdated. I mean, the one in the upper left is about hurricanes and one breaking the record for hurricanes in the United States. I understand it. There's another one hitting Florida today. So that'd be the 30th named storm, which increases that. We've all seen the stories around the wildfires. And formally this week, the Fed finally called out climate change as a stability risk on the market, and they've never done that before. So this is a pretty big move that I think we're going to see shape out the future of the industry pretty substantially. So us, Evergy Ventures, I don't want to spend too much time on who we are, but we're a venture capital fund that looks at companies that are helping this transition accelerate and building out new technologies and business models and delivery methods that have never been used before in the ecosystem. We've deployed over the past 5 years about $91 million into 21 direct investments as well as 5 fund investments. We're a pretty traditional VC on the corporate venture side, in that we look for strategic opportunities for Evergy, and then we try to partner and help those startups benefit from the expertise that we have in-house. A couple other things though about what we've been looking at and focusing on. I would say one is the core digitalization of the industry. And when I say that core, I mean the things that are in front of the meter that are utility-owned items, things like software that helps bidirectional power flows, software that helps match resources on the edge with our centralized generating units, cybersecurity software that helps protect all the new threat vectors we have coming into our company, or potentially data analytics software that helps us understand a number of data points that we've never been able to collect in the past from things like smart meters, smart thermostats, et cetera, to go help navigate a new digital world for utilities. Second category that we look at is things that are more behind the meter. So anything that our customers might want or be benefited by that gives them more control over their energy destiny. We're looking at things that are energy efficiency, energy controls devices, generation that's behind the meter, storage that they can co-locate behind the meter with generation, or maybe not even co-locate, and just generally things that make their energy journey more, more pleasant. Most people don't even care or think about on a regular basis what they're consuming, and so to the extent that we can accelerate that control and put that in the hands of customers, I think that is a really good opportunity. And then the final thing that we've been focused on is electrification. And it's really important to note that the decarbonization of our systems really can't be done without shifting some of the traditionally fossil fuel type consumers. So things in mobility, things in industrial processes, things that heating, cooling loads that have been gas or otherwise, making sure that those are electrified in the future is really the only way we're going to achieve any meaningful carbon reductions in the United States and worldwide. And I say that because, the power industry only makes up so much of the carbon usage in the world. So ensuring that we can do that and then power them with clean resources, such as wind, solar, hydro, moving into the future, that's going to be a really important step change for not only the energy ecosystem, but I think the world as we kind of think about decarbonization. So the third category is electrification of these non-traditionally electrified assets. So when I look at our portfolio, I mean, I think you can kind of understand where some of these items fit into it. Storage, we're looking at Spirit Power Systems has created a process by which they can build different types of batteries without, especially lithium ion, without thermal runaway issues. We've all heard about like Tesla catching on fire, which is a very limited problem, frankly. That's been made bigger in the news than it really is. But a company like Spear helps manage that thermal runaway for other types of mobility assets that can't have thermal runaway, say like a boat. If you're out, or a submarine, if you're out in the ocean, catching on fire is really a very severe thing to happen. So they are kind of a specialized battery for that. Other companies that we're really excited about, down the asset management group, this is more of a utility side thing, but we're looking at the automation of wind farms. SkySpecs is a brilliant example of that. They built a drone that flies itself, takes its own pictures, analyzes the images, and then feeds back into the utility or the wind farm owner recommendations for recommendations for where they ought to service and repair blades, and analyzes the propagation of damage over time, so where it's getting worse, what needs fixed, and really leads to more efficient operation of wind farms. ensuring that we have uptime is one of those things where it helps the second bullet point that I talked about earlier with the intermittency of generation. Ensuring that we have them online helps predict and it keep enabled because frankly the downtime right now for wind is higher than like a coal plant. Ensuring that we can keep those wind farms online helps us better ensure we have a decarbonized future. A company like Innowatts in the analytics section takes meter data, which in the past 20 years ago, people might not know this, but almost all consumption data was done by a truck roll where somebody walked up to your meter and recorded the different level of consumption for the month. Then it went to a level 1 type smart meter that you would drive by with a truck and it would send a signal and it would automatically pick it up and update. That's still good, but you had to drive by with a truck and it was pretty limited on the type of data that you could get. Now we're doing kind of a second generation of smart meters that feeds in 5-minute interval data in real time. Well, most utilities are only utilizing that data for, frankly, looking back at consumption and then billing. Innowatts is, there are some other companies out there, but Innowatts is really at the top of their game for utilizing that data for things like hour ahead forecasting, product recommendations for customers to make their energy efficiency better, et cetera. So you can see how, new companies are changing the way we think and operate. In the customer solutions and energy efficiency side, Palmetto is a great example. I mean, one of the problems with distributed solar right now is the high cost. I mean, to the extent we can bring costs down, it's going to be more, there's going to be more solar that's sold because the economic reasoning behind it is better for the customer. Palmetto is rapidly reducing the customer acquisition cost, which is almost 1/5 of the expense for a traditional solar company. And to the extent you can bring that down, you can accelerate the growth of renewable assets that are on the grid. And then one thing we're noting, funds down at the bottom, Energy Impact Partners is a fund that we're proud to be a partner that is a consortium of about 20 utilities that have gotten together to fund in large ways these types of companies at later stages. And the impact that they're having on the broader ecosystem has been really substantial. So I just want to make sure I noted that. But anyhow, thank you guys for your time. I know that I ran through a lot of information and that there is a ton more out there. Hopefully it sets up the rest of the presenters today to really talk through some of these issues in more depth, as they're handling smaller individual problems, not smaller problems, but individual items within the broader ecosystem. And hopefully, and I'm excited to watch them as well, but hopefully it really helps deepen this conversation. Thank you guys for the time. Wade, Arsh, thank you for reaching out to me. Saeed, it's always a pleasure. If anybody wants to reach back out, my email's right here. Feel free to do so. Thank you guys so much.
Thank you so much, Brock, for being our keynote speaker here at our Energy Winter Summit. I look forward to meeting you one day, hopefully in our Sunnyvale headquarters or even potentially in Kansas. And now it is my honor to announce our Corporate Partner Award winner for this cycle. It is, virtual drum roll, Phillips 66. I'm selfishly very excited about this because I have the honor of working with Phillips 66 closely. Our champion is Sean Behunik, and she's done a great job of getting multiple business units within Phillips 66 involved with us, and they've had great success here with, they've had great success the 2 years that they've been working with us. So they've prepared a little video and we'll play it now.
Hello, my name is Sean Behonik, and I'm the General Manager here at Phillips 66 for the Digital Strategy, Architecture, and Operations teams. Phillips 66 is an energy logistics company supported primarily by our refining and midstream businesses. About 2 years ago, we engaged with Plug and Play to not only introduce new technologies into our work processes, but also help to change the mindset of the company to be more innovative and open to new ideas. We've hosted several of the groups here, from Refining's digital operations teams to Midstream's digital innovation, and even our research and development teams around sustainability. And we've invited them to visit, participate in deal flows, and even engage in several pilots for the startup companies. In addition, we had several of our senior executives view the process themselves in Sunnyvale. So thank you, Plug and Play, for this corporate award. We are thrilled. An honorable mention definitely goes to Midstream, who has been the most active with Plug and Play with the startup community. And here to talk more about that is Jeff Brennan.
Thanks, Sean. Finding ways to do things more efficiently is critical. Working with Plug and Play, we've found success in identifying startups with innovative value-add solutions. Phillips 66 Midstream is currently working 5 proof of concepts with startups in the Plug and Play ecosystem. Here you go, Dale.
Thanks, Jeff. The Plug and Play deal flow format allows us access to many companies and startups we would not normally be able to engage with. They allow our teams to see all about a company in just a very short amount of time. We've enjoyed working with the Plug and Play team through this process. However, this award belongs to many here at Phillips 66.
Thank you, Plug and Play. Thanks.
Thank you so much, Sean and the Phillips 66 team. I love that video. It's so creative. And now I have the pleasure of introducing my colleague, Noreen. She is on our Ventures team and will MC the rest of the Energy Winter Summit session. Thanks so much again, and look forward to seeing y'all in the networking portion. Noreen, over to you.
Hi, thanks so much, Pyle, for that wonderful introduction, and for Phillips 66 for creating that awesome video for us. That was definitely very special, and Brock for that excellent energy industry overview that definitely set the landscape for what we're going to see from our startups today. Thank you everyone for joining us online, and I am Noreen. For those of you who don't know me, I work on the Ventures team alongside Milad and Alberto. We are focusing here on a lot of the energy investments, and so without further ado, I'm going to present the 13 startups that made this year's Energy Batch 7. So to kick everything off, we have Eliq here. Eliq is going to present their SaaS platform, enabling energy companies around the world to engage and retain their customers by helping them manage their energy usage. So let's hear it for Khan to start us off.
Hi, my name is Håkan Ludvigsson. I'm CEO and one of the founders of Eliq. We're a SaaS company out of Gothenburg, Sweden, and we help energy companies create deep relationships and do more business with their customers. We're a team of about 30 people, split between our Gothenburg, Sweden headquarters and London in the UK. We've recently raised a 5 million Series A round of financing to help us grow our team from about 30 today to something like 50, 55 next summer. Raised funds from Inman Capital and Contrarian Ventures, and we're really excited about this next phase. Currently, we're serving 18 utilities across 7 countries in Europe. We're working with the large traditional utility companies that are transforming the way they work with customers, Vattenfall, Fortum, Naturgy, and others. But we're also working with fast-growing, digitally enabled challenger suppliers, companies like Cityscounter, Green Yellow, or eGas and Power. So these are very different, kind of 2 very different kinds of animals, if you will. But the way that they think about the world is very similar. They're looking at their business models, really changing from this transactional kilowatt hours with a margin on top to something where they're actually offering a range of different services across energy-related topics to their customers, and really partnering with their customers as opposed to supplying them with something. To put yourself in that, to get to, put yourself there and get yourself into that position, you really need to have a strong relationship with those customers. And the way that utilities interact with their customers today, that's not the case. Majority of end customers interact with their utilities only by bills or these online portals where you can see a bar chart of your consumption. And they're spending about 9 minutes a year thinking about their customers. So we wanted to set out to do something about this. And we've developed a product, really a solution that helps utilities to change the way that they interact with those customers. And we deliver it as a white label product or as an API or in a software development kit where utilities can build their own products on top. And what it does, it helps the end customer understand their consumption, feel empowered about the next steps that they could be taking, take the steps, and ultimately buy or opt into new energy services that they can also manage from that same end user experience. It's not just something for the energy nerds like myself. We're seeing 30% plus opt-in rates, so more than 30% of utilities' customer base becoming users. We're seeing a 10x uplift in engagement and a 3x uplift in loyalty, which has a huge impact on the bottom line for our customers. So can we help you? If you're a utility, please get in touch and we'll talk about our pre-study. If you're not a utility, these are my details. I'm keen to talk to you anyway. Looking forward to speaking. Thank you.
Thanks, Hakan, and we definitely look forward to hearing more from you during our Q&A session later in the event. So next up, we have the Chief Evangelist for 75F, Bob French, to tell us about their state-of-the-art technology solution that predicts and manages buildings' energy needs. So without further ado, let's hear from 75F.
Hi, it's Bob French from 75F. Thanks for the opportunity to make this pitch. We're on a mission to make your building work for you. What that means is that we're putting smart sensors and controls in commercial buildings to make them healthier and more efficient and more comfortable than ever before at a disruptive price point. Now that's a key point because building automation is available. The incumbents are missing 80 to 90% of the commercial space in the United States, though, all on the basis of cost. So we needed to solve that problem. So we built a system which is complete for HVAC control, air quality, lighting, and energy management. And we're backed by Breakthrough Energy Ventures, which is a Bill Gates-backed fund. We're building the world's best BMS, and our customers worldwide are seeing 41.8% energy savings. And this year with COVID-19, because we control ventilation, we realized that we had an opportunity to play a part in reducing the transmission of COVID-19 in commercial buildings. You see, the CDC and ASHRAE have issued guidance on increasing outside air fractions to dilute the viral load inside of buildings. So we responded and created a epidemic mode setting on our software that automatically just follows those guidelines and makes it very easy and very accessible for people to reduce the risk of COVID-19 transmission. Now we deliver a vertically integrated out-of-the-box experience. And so let me just discuss that for a minute. So first of all, what I mean by out of the box is that all of our sensors and controls literally work out of the box. Once you get power to them and select the type of equipment they're using, they all automatically connect, they create their own network. All of the sequences of operation are pre-made, and they report up to our web portal and set of mobile apps, making access to these buildings better and easier than ever before. These installations occur much faster because of our breakthroughs. By eliminating the field programming and the field networking, we reduce that cost and we make projects happen much faster. But because of we're cloud-based, we can also take advantage of artificial intelligence, machine learning, big data, and massive parallel processing. So we have a live weather feed. We're studying what happens to the building. And then at night, we get a weather forecast. And we get the answers to the test every morning, which is how we make buildings so much more comfortable and efficient than ever before with predictive and proactive controls. Now, locally in the upper Midwest here, we're working with Home Furniture. They have over 2 million square feet that we've got control. And we have provided so far a 40% HVAC energy savings. In the past year and a half, almost 2 years, that has amounted to $111,000, which is a $49,000 per year savings on a $53,000 install, which is right about a simple payback of 1 year. So smart companies are listening. So we're working with SP Group, which is Singapore Power. Singapore is known as one of the most smart buildings and smart cities. So we're making our buildings in Singapore smart to plug into that smart cities concept. We're also working with Daikin, which is the world's largest HVAC manufacturer, to help accelerate their control strategy by integrating our control strategies with them. We're working with a lot of other companies throughout the Americas, and we would really like to look forward to talking with you to find out what your challenges are and how we might help. Thank you.
Thanks so much, Bob, for that awesome overview. I look forward to also chatting with you in the panel discussion shortly. So moving along, we have John with Litmus here next to tell us more about their edge computing providing to help bridge the gap between data and enterprise applications for companies. So let's give them our undivided attention.
Hi, everyone. My name is John Eunice. I'm one of the co-founders and COO at Litmus. Litmus is a Silicon Valley-based company. We've been around since about 2014, and our goal is really to help Industry 4.0 become a reality for industrial companies by leveraging the power of the intelligent edge. We're backed by Mitsubishi Corporation, who completed our Series A about a year ago, and we have an ecosystem of Fortune 500 companies that we work with, as well as a global ecosystem of partners that we go to market with. And we've been recognized by publications such as Gartner and MacNation within the industrial IoT segment. Really, one of the main challenges that companies are facing from the first point in the industrial world is you're dealing with a lot of legacy type of systems, very difficult to actually get data out of these siloed ecosystems, where they have a lot of different proprietary protocols, data formats, data structures. So really the first step to actually achieve anything is to actually get access to secure and normalized data across all of your equipment. And then once that data is available, actually how you can actually process that data, analyze it, visualize that data, and run custom applications or third-party applications on top of that data. And then finally, data integration is that third main challenge. So once that data is available, you want to be able to leverage it in multiple areas, whether it's in the cloud or big data systems or other enterprise systems, so that you can get much more use out of that same data. So we help companies address these three layers and challenges with our two core products here. Litmus Edge is really our main product. It's purely a software solution which runs locally next to the assets or at the remote site. And what it provides is the ability to pretty much communicate across any type of industrial system, no matter the make or model. We've pre-built hundreds of different protocol drivers that we can pretty much speak to anything that's out there, which is part of our intellectual property. And then once we make that data available, we have various analytical tools to help leverage that data at the edge and integrate that data pretty much anywhere where companies want to use it. And then we have the Edge Manager, so it's more the central management layer, which enables you to really be able to scale all of your edge deployments, manage all your devices and applications and deployment orchestration so that you can easily scale these kind of edge IoT deployments. We're trusted by Fortune 500 companies. As you can see here on the left, we work with a number of different large industrial organizations that are using us around the world within a number of their factories or remote locations. So we have large scale production deployments. We also go to market through OEMs, companies that license and white label our products like HPE and Parker Hannifin, Hitachi Vantara. So we go to market through these kind of white label partnerships. We also have an ecosystem of hardware partner system integrators and cloud companies that we work with and co-sell with. Thank you, everybody, and feel free to reach out if you have any other additional questions.
Awesome. Thanks, John, for sharing that overview. Next up, we'll have the last startup in this beginning part of our session today with Gareth Evans presenting Veckta. Veckta empowers you and your business to take control of your energy future by providing the tools you need to customize your energy transition.
Rising energy costs, evolving sustainability needs, and threats to power reliability jeopardize your business. You know the right energy system can save money, reduce carbon emissions, and ensure the power stays on. But finding the optimal solution at the best price is time-consuming and expensive. What equipment is best for your site? Who will engineer and deploy it? How will you pay for it? Self-financing or energy as a service? Veckta, the energy transition platform, is the end-to-end marketplace for microgrids and other distributed energy systems. Veckta brings together the processes, tools, and trusted partners you need, helping you achieve smart energy success. Our industry-defining analysis toolkit reduces feasibility study costs by 90%, providing a customized plan that fits your needs. Our marketplace platform transparently matches the right equipment providers, project delivery specialists, and financing to deliver your optimized energy solution. The world of tomorrow won't be built on the power grid of the past century. Create a thriving, secure, profitable, and sustainable future today.
So how are we doing this? We are bringing together the best team in the industry with industry-leading technology. Myself and Tristan are the co-founders of Veckta. We observed and lived through the opportunities and challenges of this industry firsthand while leading Worley's global distributed energy business. I bring the business acumen, leadership, and team building expertise, and Tristan brings the strategy and unrivaled expertise in distributed energy. Philip built the Apple App Store and knows what it takes to build a marketplace that is designed around the user. We have industry experts and software developers in-house and around the world. And Veckta has exclusive access to Zendy. Zendy is the only technology in the world today that can optimize microgrids and distributed energy systems, both technically and economically. It is the standard platform for designing such systems and is backed by over $700 million of investment, 20 years of R&D, and has been used to design over 37,000 microgrids to date. Veckta takes a very complex problem and makes it simple. We put the power in your hands. Take control of your energy future today to be more resilient, sustainable, and profitable. Thank you.
Awesome. Thanks so much. Those were very impressive videos from all of you. Hakan, Matt, Arneson with 75F, John, and Gareth could turn on their videos. We'd love to start our first panel discussion today. So how it'll work is it'll be kind of a Q&A style. And if any members of the audience would like to post questions or has any directed questions, just please post in the Q&A box and I'll be sure to ask them. So without further ado, hey guys, how are you? I hope you're all, keeping well. Really appreciate you signing on to be here with me today. So I would love to start you all touch on different parts of the energy industry and bringing about the future of energy. So I'd love to kind of just start off with what your initial take is on how corporations and consumers are really helping you shape the future of energy, specifically during this time. I'm throwing it to Gareth.
Can you repeat that again, please, Marina? You were breaking up.
Yeah, sorry about that. I would just love to kind of get your thoughts on, to start off with just shaping the future of energy. Veckta and each of you are working on very different tools, but all going towards the future of where energy will take us. So have you seen any particular changes that have taken place during this pandemic time that have shaped the future of the grid and kind of progressed it during the pandemic?
Yeah, great question. We're seeing quite a few different trends, actually. We're already seeing a real push from corporations to realizing that the centralized grid is both aging and becoming more expensive to maintain, and as such becoming less reliable. And with increased severe weather events in some of the key geographies that corporations and industries are based, we're seeing greater reliability and resilience issues. And combining that with the social license to operate and the need to reduce emissions, we're seeing a culmination of factors where, combined with the fact that distributed energy systems are now becoming more commercially viable, there's a renewed interest. And I think what COVID's really taught us all is that the centralized system that we're all previously operating in, whether it's working in offices, having centralized corporate solutions, it's also vulnerable to change. And we're seeing the same in the power sector. That centralized traditional grid is very vulnerable. We've demonstrated that, and it's possible to shift to a more distributed energy future. By doing that, it's more complex up front, but in the long term, it's more resilient and reliable. So we really want to support the industry to move through that complex phase and make it as simple as possible.
Yeah, and Matt, maybe to just kind of go off of that, how have you seen buildings and different, corporations and their real estate infrastructure have kind of, come to you during this time and, look for help and kind of change the future of their sustainability?
Yeah, no, this has been a great time. As we see buildings unoccupied, now's a chance where everybody's putting their controls in. And we are talking to corporations that are putting new controls in because they want to move to the wind and solar energy. And as Gareth was talking about, the infrastructure is old, outdated. So as we move to wind and solar, everybody's got to move to electric. And our controls all helping reduce the energy cost of a building, help reduce that load on the grid to get us by until we can move to more solar and wind power. So we're trying to save the grid and preserve it right now by taking some of the energy off with our controls for HVAC and lighting now. So the infrastructure is definitely getting old, but we're using our controls to limit that right now until we can get to fully 100% renewable energy. So a lot of corporations are taking that to heart. In the last 2-3 months, we're getting a lot of phone calls asking how they can do it. So it's really moving that way. So it's been very interesting, even during the pandemic. So.
Yeah, and I heard during your video presentation, you kind of pivoted during as once it started and kind of hunkered down on more of the like HVAC systems and stuff like that. How did that work? Was that an easy pivot?
It actually was. It was kind of in our wheelhouse. It was when we decided to go kind of the COVID stuff. The controls are already in place. All we had to do was actually integrate more different sequencing from like the CDC or ASHRAE guidelines. We kind of came up with our own sequencing, so it's all in more software stuff. So the controls are in place. It was just more of our firmware and software techs writing code and sequencing for it. So it was a pretty easy transition. And right now, everybody's still kind of in the COVID transition, but we're seeing more people come back and looking for the energy savings now. So we're transitioning back, even though our times are still unstable. A lot of people are looking for the energy side of things now.
Definitely, definitely. And John, this question is for you, kind of looking at more of edge computing and IoT, the industrial IoT, and kind of how the pandemic has shaped that for you, and if you had to make any major pivots thus far.
Yeah, for sure. I'd say it's become an accelerator for the industry, specifically in the industrial side or manufacturing, where you're dealing with a lot of people that need to be on site operating these equipment, actually need to be at the machine and see what's going on. So people are looking to do more with less when it comes to actually operating the equipment or at different remote locations. So I think that's pretty much been a big accelerator for the IoT trend there. And at the same time, obviously, with businesses being challenged, then that's now on the sales side. Now companies are looking at ways to become more efficient, lower costs. So looking at more digital technology, such as IoT, is a way to do that, or Industry 4.0. So for us, it's been pretty much just kind of riding that wave now that's been coming. And we've also tried to make more of a conscious effort at focusing more on essential services or essential businesses that are a little less affected, such as, let's say, food or beverages or energy, which are essential type services. And that's been a way for us to really adjust to some more, I'd say, industries or verticals that were more heavily affected.
Oh, that's incredible. Awesome. Just to kind of switch gears for a quick second, Hakan, this is a question for you, kind of dealing with privacy. How do you deal with that in terms of on the like user level for end consumers, and then also more on the corporate level?
Sorry, breaking up a little bit here. You're asking about how we deal with privacy from an end user point of view and from corporate. Mm-hmm. Yeah. So yeah, I mean, obviously, this is quite different from one region to another. Where some parts of Central Europe or consumer, there's this massive sort of resistance to sharing data by yourself. Whereas in other places, I would say probably Scandinavia, the UK, people are more generally more comfortable sharing more data. So we're primarily active in the European region. So so where we sit, we work as a software provider to utility companies. So we don't actually, have a direct relationship with the end customers. But we sort of have to, so we act on behalf of the utility in sort of convincing their customers to sort of share more data about themselves to get a more valuable customer experience. Because I guess at the end of the day, end customer, or like consumers, are, you're willing to share your geolocation with Google just because you can access Google Maps, which is a great service, right? And that's a pretty sensitive data compared to your energy consumption, for example. So on the end customer side, I think there's ways to deal with it, and I think the problem this far has been like the sort of the resistance against smart meters and such, sort of been because customers haven't seen the actual value. So why should I be giving up my data if all I'm getting is you don't have to come and read my meter anymore? That's not a clear value proposition to consumers. So yeah. But then on the corporate side, I think what's really changed over the last couple of years was with GDPR, and I think we're seeing from other countries now sort of adopting similar, if not legislation, then at least thinking around how do we safeguard and protect the data and make sure that corporates are sort of putting the consumer in control. Yeah, I might just stop there.
That's perfect. I also would love to ask a little bit more about that. How are the different regulatory environments in the, across the European Union, and then as you come over to the United States, how does that look, and how has that shaped kind of what Eliq can offer?
So yeah, there's quite a bit of quite a, even within Europe, which has like a quite harmonized sort of framework for how we think about privacy and data, and even within Europe, we have a lot of differences. So for example, in the UK, for example, the network companies who operate the networks, even if there are smart meters in their networks, they can't actually access the data from those smart meters because they need to get the explicit permission from the end customer, but they literally have no relationship with the end customer and no interaction with them at all. So they will, like with the regulatory framework currently here, or in Spain is a similar situation, they will never access that data and as it stands, which is probably not great for grid planning and lots of challenges that they have ahead. So we're seeing some DSOs, DNOs sort of looking at how can we sort of challenge that regulatory framework and find new ways to connect with the customers, which is quite an interesting. That's super sort of fragmented across Europe even. But then we work in places like in Chile, for example, which sort of halfway through our smart meter pilot, the government decided to cancel the smart meter rollout, go back on it, get the utilities to pay back all the money that they started charging for the smart meter rentals for the rollout that had begun. So sort of we're very highly affected by that environment, but yeah.
Yeah, no, thanks for that. And I feel like that question also applies to the rest of you as well. Gareth, maybe do you have any different insights, or have you experienced something different in terms of the regulatory environment when dealing in different parts of the world?
Yes, and it varies almost from community to community, state to state, region to region. So it, especially when we're dealing with distributed energy and trying to interact with utilities, and particularly the utilities have created lots of different ways to work in their utility bill structures. They're quite unique. They can be quite individual in nature, which can make it quite challenging to create a solution that can play across the globe. You need to get access to some real-time information as to what the likes of the utilities are willing to consider, how they'd be willing to engage with a customer wanting to put a system behind the fence and generate their own energy. So yeah, across the board, it's unique and challenging, but that's what keeps it exciting.
Yeah, so do you feel that you're able to do you have to kind of adopt depending on the corporation that you're working with, or adapt, I mean, depending on who the user is, or how does that look?
Yeah, less about the user, more about the region and geography, to make sure that the data that's been applied to optimize their energy solution is relevant to their particular needs, their location, and their regulatory environment.
Got it. Awesome. And then I see there's a question for John here in our chat box asking what role edge computing plays within the industrial IoT.
Yeah, sure. So edge computing has a number of benefits when you're working obviously within the industrial IoT space. And it's really complementary to a lot of companies' cloud strategies. But just to talk specifically about energy and where you're dealing with a lot, sometimes remote environments where you don't necessarily have good network connection, edge computing really does plays a pretty pivotal role. So having the ability where you can do a lot more on that data locally without having to rely on some sort of internet connection. Or if you have poor network coverage and the network goes down, you need to have some sort of ability to actually cache this data if you're sending it to the cloud. And then also when you're dealing with high volumes of data, then being able to actually pre-process some of that data, parse some of it out, filter the data so you're not just sending everything to the cloud and you're really sending what's more relevant. And it really acts as that data pipeline to the cloud. So being able to connect to all these different physical systems on local networks where you can actually have some sort of security in between, so you're not just actually exposing those your assets directly to the cloud or over the internet. And then on the other side, once you actually create these inferences on the data or start developing machine learning models, when you're running more real-time analytics, like deploying machine learning models where you want to take decisions on data, then edge computing plays a great role where it can deploy these machine learning models at the edge and take more real-time decisions, so you don't have to, again, worry about latency or network outages, where sometimes it can be critical decisions that need to be taken on that data in milliseconds.
Yeah, definitely. Especially, I think that plays near and dear to a lot of our utility and energy partners with a lot of distributed assets. So thanks for that. And then the last question I think is going to go to Matt here. I have for you is really asking about how your offerings have had to adapt and quickly kind of become more agile as the pandemic has seen such a big posed such a big threat to buildings and large corporations' real estate. How do you kind of preempt those conversations, or how have you kind of, maybe kind of done a little bit of a pivot internally?
Yeah, internally. So when the pandemic hit, internally, we had some discussions. Before we were just doing straight HVAC controls, smart thermostats, controlling VAV dampers. A place to play right away. So we started adding new sequences inside of our controller boxes. We started adding different HEPA filters, different UV lighting to kind of combat the airborne disease. And then we also brought more fresh air from the outside in. So we started installing like larger controllers, mixing valves, things like that, so the fresh air we could hold and containerize and then release it as we needed to keep more fresh air in. So our controls and our platform really changed and really adapted in a matter of probably 6 weeks. When the kind of pandemic hit, we literally kind of did a 180. So we were always going to play in the smart building space, especially in the real estate, commercial. But when this pandemic hit, we probably expanded our controls platform by 25%, just offer new offerings, new things like that. So it really helped us grow, and we have a need for it, and companies calling daily. So it really helped us expand our business, our products, and our portfolio that way. So if it wasn't for that, I don't know where we'd be, but yeah, we really adapted quickly. So it's been a team effort of there's 40 of us here. So yeah, we kind of all jumped on the same page. So
awesome. Well, that's really helpful, and I appreciate that response. All of you have given us a good kind of positive outlook for hopefully the future of energy going forward, and also good to know that it's not the death of the office. So thanks for that. All right, well, thank you all so much, and please definitely, to all of our audience members, log into the networking session later to catch up with all of them. And now I think we're gonna continue on our next portion of the event by starting off with our next startup. So, alrighty, next up we have Electrochaea. Electrochaea is developing a disruptive solution for utility scale energy storage, grid balancing, and carbon reuse. So let's see what they've been working on.
Hi everybody, my name is Ariane and I am a business development manager at Electrochaea, and today I want to take the next few minutes to introduce you to the only company worldwide to have validated a biological methanation technology in industrial prototypes by turning renewable energy into synthetic methane and injecting it into several gas grid networks. In thinking about the future of energy and climate, Electrochaea's technology takes two burdens that pretty much everybody can agree to be problematic: curtailed renewable power and climate-disturbing CO2, to generate renewable natural gas, a product with known storage, distribution, and usage characteristics. Our technology is based on a microorganism called archaea that can virtually transform every molecule of CO2 into molecules of methane without using fossil fuel. Our process utilizes 1 molecule of CO2 combined with 4 molecules of hydrogen to produce methane with heat and water as byproduct. Our unique biocatalyst is highly efficient with a conversion efficiency from carbon to methane of 98.6%. Overall, the high productivity under simple operating conditions enables value creation for Electrochaea. Our solution integrates renewable power across all sectors. More and more, renewable energy is being curtailed, but there is not enough storage capacity available. Biological methanation enables the storage of CO2 and renewable energy into the chemical bonds of methane. This methane can then be stored into the largest available battery in the world, the gas grid. It can also be used to displace natural gas into the transportation sector, heat sector, home appliances, or in the electricity sector, for example. Over the years, Electrochaea has scaled up and de-risked its technology. More recently, Electrochaea has validated its technology in 3 different commercial scale pilot plants, one in Denmark, one in Switzerland, and one in the United States, with achieving gas grid injection in both the Swiss and the Danish gas grid. So we are very happy to be here today. In general terms, Electrochaea is looking to attract equity investment, to establish new key partnerships, to further develop its project pipeline, to license its technology, and ultimately to provide an attractive exit to its investors. I want to conclude by introducing you to the team behind all of it. At Electrochaea, we are a highly motivated, skilled, and multidisciplinary team led by experienced management with support from our venture investors and, most importantly, our strategic investor, Storengy. And we are backed by our strong networks and collaborators. And remember, Electrochaea is the only company worldwide to have validated a biological methanation technology in industrial prototypes by turning renewable energy into synthetic methane and injecting it into several gas grid networks. Thank you.
Thanks so much, Ariane, for that wonderful intro to Electrochaea. I look forward to chatting with Joe in the chat later on. All right, so next up we have Yotta Energy. Jen will be here to tell us more about their mission to lead the world's clean energy transition and how they're working on 100% renewable energy to simplify energy storage. So without further ado, let's hear it for Jen.
Hi, I'm Jen Gallegos with Yotta Energy. Our product is a solar leaf, a panel-level energy storage solution. Central energy storage systems, such as Tesla's Powerpack and others, are bulky, complicated, and expensive. They require their own building with HVAC, fire suppression systems, and complex design elements. Yotta Energy, on the other hand, has created the first panel-level energy storage product that fits perfectly behind any industry standard solar module, neatly integrating into solar PV racking in place of concrete ballast. Our technology, which has been validated by NREL and others, truly is plug and play, as it's simple, modular, scalable, and safe. We're targeting several different types of customers, including corporate partners, progressive utilities, and government agencies and solar developers for small and mid-sized projects. The most impressive thing about energy storage is that it lets you use renewable energy 24/7 and take advantage of energy price arbitrage, both of which save you a bundle. However, the most impressive thing about Yotta's technology is that it doesn't need to be indoors due to our patented thermal management system, and that's a game changer in terms of reducing total installed system cost. In fact, total installed system cost is perhaps the biggest issue that's prevented widespread adoption of solar energy, and we've solved it. Our partners agree. Some of them include Wells Fargo, Energy Australia, a successful pilot project at California State University, and many others. We recently closed a $5 million Series Seed round. We have letters of intent to sell over 30,000 units. We're projecting 270,000 unit sales and nearly $200 million in annual revenue in 2025. We're looking for additional corporations and progressive utilities to partner with for demonstration pilot projects and/or strategic partnerships. While we are initially targeting commercial rooftops, we've also identified applications for the residential and utility scale markets. Ultimately, Yotta's solution can help replace or eliminate fossil fuel peaker plants, enable wide-scale adoption of EVs, and electrify the grid by turning any building into a self-generating power plant. Yotta Energy's leadership team combines decades of energy industry experience in commercializing clean technology and scaling manufacturing operations. Yotta has also won numerous industry awards, including the Caltech Rocket Fund most recently. If you have any questions or want to discuss pilots or partnerships further, please feel free to reach out. Here's our contact info, and thank you for watching.
Great. Thanks so much, Jen, for that really incredibly impressive presentation. Next up, we have Matthew Dawson to speak to us about Utility Global. Utility Global aims to have the highest efficiency, lowest cost, longest lasting, zero carbon distributed electricity on the market. So let's see how much progress they've made so far.
Imagine if you could finally generate low-cost clean hydrogen at a distributed level. Utility Global is making this vision a reality. I'm Matthew Dawson, the CEO of Utility Global. Utility Global is a spin-out of Hall Labs with a legacy dating back to the 1950s with Tracy Hall, who invented the man-made diamond. Utility's first cornerstone hydrogen technology is based upon its oxide ion chip. The oxide ion chip is the next generation of solid oxide electrolyzers, but unlike its predecessors, these electrolyzers have been miniaturized and production has been automated and scaled up with unprecedented speed. While our competitors take 2 days to make a single fuel cell, our process takes less than 2 minutes. So what does this 1,000-fold increase in speed mean in terms of costs? Our competitors can spend over $1,000 a kilowatt to manufacture their stacks. We're looking at reducing those costs by more than 99%. Here's a video of our manufacturing process in action. You're about to witness the world's fastest production of an electrode for an SOEC. Our proprietary printing technology enables complex microstructures to be built, which is how we achieve unparalleled miniaturization. Our proprietary inks are then cured and taken to the final step of the system for sintering. Our competitors perform this sintering step in about a day. We do it in a blink of an eye. In addition to our oxide ion chip technology, we've also developed a breakthrough electrolyzer technology that can harness everything from biofuels to natural gas to produce what aims to be the world's lowest cost hydrogen production. When compared to today's leading hydrogen production technology, steam methane reforming, we're targeting up to a 30% reduction in production costs and equally impressive reduction in greenhouse gas emissions. So how does this technology work? The beauty of the technology is in its simplicity. There's no need for complex stacks or interconnects. Water is simply fed on the inside of a tube and fuel on the outside. Our proprietary architecture and materials split the water into hydrogen and oxygen without any need of electricity. In essence, we use the cheapest form of energy, heat, to do our separation rather than electricity. And just like fuel cells are more efficient than heat engines, Electrochemical separation of gases is far more efficient than mechanical separation. This clean, low-cost hydrogen can be used for everything from energy storage applications to low-cost forklifts for the booming online retail commerce industry to highly reliable data centers and more. Not only is our technology unique, but the team that has built this company is like no other team I've had the privilege of working with. Not only do we have the top graduates from the top technical universities around the world, but we have a team that knows how to build successful companies and drive technology adoption. We invite you to join us to reshape the world's energy landscape and finally provide that low-cost, clean, reliable solution the world has been searching for.
Great. Thanks so much, Matt, for that wonderful presentation. Next up, we have Kelly Herring, the CTO of Charm Industrial, to tell us more about Charm's carbon negative hydrogen using biomass gasification.
Hello, everyone. I'm Kelly Herring, and I'm the CTO and co-founder of Charm Industrial. The team at Charm is working to return the atmosphere to 280 parts per million CO2 through a couple of different ways. One is our new negative emissions pathway called bio-oil sequestration, as well as the production of green hydrogen and syngas for green steel production. Nature-based offsets have been popular, but their impact and permanence are questionable. This is because deforestation may simply route around forests that are protected by offset purchases, and the permanence might be in question because of forest fires, political stability, or just general climate uncertainty. Negative emissions technologies offer more certainty. Their impact is certain because you can rigorously isolate, measure, and monitor CO2 equivalent removal activities, and their permanence is more certain due to simpler and more well-understood chemistry and physics. However, with these large projects for negative emissions, you also comes with high CapEx costs and long-term monitoring concerns. For example, the direct air capture injection is roughly $800 per ton CO2 equivalent today, and their first project plant was projected at about $1 billion CapEx. Their permanence monitoring is also expensive, so that supercritical CO2 is very buoyant. It rises to the top of formations and seeks escape. And this is problematic, so you have to add in a lot of monitoring equipment to make sure that you're tracking how much is escaping or preventing that escape. So bio-oil sequestration is our new negative emissions pathway. We take cellulosic biomass and we produce it through a process called fast pyrolysis into bio-oil. And that bio-oil is rich in carbon, similar to crude oil, but it has a higher oxygen content, a higher water content, and a lower energy content, making it not very useful as a fuel. Our bio-oil is then prepared via our new patent pending methods and placed into wells where it's permanently stored. And here's just a look a little bit at that cellulosic biomass availability, which we think can help us get to the gigatons amount of sequestration. And here's our sequestration pricing. So we had some initial sales of voluntary offsets, and that allowed us to drop even further into our cost curve. So starting at $600 a ton, now we're about at $525 a ton, and we plan to move down that cost curve to get us down to that $50 per ton price point, similar to nature-based offsets. So these economies of scale can be accelerated by these new bio-oil markets, which unlock larger markets like hydrogen and green steel. So we can start with our negative emissions market and help us move into making small gas fires to create green hydrogen, as well as large gas fires for oil refining, ammonia, and steel production. So if you want to learn more about purchasing negative emissions from us or partnering with us on a pilot for green hydrogen or green steel, please feel free to contact us. Thank you.
Thanks so much, Kelly. I look forward to chatting with you really soon. All right, next up, we have our last startup for this section. Andre will be here with us to tell us about DiviGas and their recycling hydrogen process right now that they have, which is truly robust and using economic membranes for industrial plants and refineries around the world. All right, let's hear it for Andre.
Hello, my name is Andre Lorenzo and I'm the CEO and co-founder of DiviGas, a hydrogen separation membrane. So today there's about 73 million tons of hydrogen being generated every year around petrochemical plants and refineries. And about 15% of that gas gets wasted. It becomes too low purity after being used, and it goes into what we call an off-gas stream, a side waste stream, and mostly is discarded. However, there are filters, membranes, and other technology to repurify that hydrogen, but overwhelmingly, the vast majority of those streams require too much pretreatment, and the gas recovery is not financially worthwhile. So this is where we come in. We've invented a new membrane, which is the fiber you have on the right, that we fit inside the modules, the tubes that you have on the left, and we make the whole thing as a hardware system. And we set that up on those streams to repurify the hydrogen. It's very simple. It's like a filter. You put pressure on it, the hydrogen comes out one side, the other molecules the other. And what we do specifically that's different is that we made the fiber much, much more robust, and we removed the need for this expensive pretreatment while also increasing the efficiency of the fiber. This is when compared to the incumbents in industry, which are on the right. So today, this is about $1 billion market. However, we think that we can significantly increase the size of that market because we remove the need for that pretreatment, which makes many streams that are today unrecoverable be financially worthwhile to reharvest. And we have 3 clients that today have these streams that were not really available to anybody else. And they're in the pilot stage right now. We're doing tests with them. Or we're sending them modules. They're at different stages, each one of them. But the idea is to do full size rollouts by end of next year or the year after that. Now, I've raised a Series B. I've built a Series B company and raised $15 million in the past in the software space. And my co-founder, Dr. Ali Naderi, has been working on this both commercially and in research for over 9 years. And we're funded and backed by Hacks and Entrepreneur First. We've raised $350,000 from them and angels. We are right now doing series of tests. Some of them already come back, and we can share a lot of the results we have. Externally reviewed tests, I should add. We're looking to close the seed round by the end of the year to do full-scale manufacturing next year to meet those delivery timelines. If you're a corporate partner and you have worked with hydrogen streams or know somebody who does, we can simulate very quickly for free what our product would work on streams. And we can do pilots basically for no money down. Similar to seed investors, we are closing our round by the end of the year. We already have a lot of interest, multiple leads involved, and to build 2 manufacturing lines to deserve that. And that's it. We're DiviGas, and we're in Singapore, and happy to take your questions at any time.
Great. Well, thanks so much, Andre, and thanks for being with us here from Singapore. So I appreciate you, kind of hustling through the night here. We will now jump into our next panel discussion. So if you all is on and unmute, I would have Electrochaea, Yotta, there. Charm, awesome. I think we have everybody almost here. Yeah, awesome. Great, guys. Hi, thanks so much for joining me today. So to start off, I think we'd love to talk about each of you kind of bring something different to the energy transition, working with different players in the space. And so what first we would love to talk about is kind of the energy transition and how you guys have seen, what you guys see as the best way that a lot of our partners who we have on the line, oil and gas, utilities companies, can help you really further the impact that you're trying to make. So I'll give it to Jen or Kelly. Both of you have your mics off, so I'm assuming that means you're ready to take the questions.
Yeah, absolutely. So just to repeat, the question is maybe why our solution and why now? Is that a good way to phrase it?
Our partners, what role they're kind of essential in playing to help you bring about that change that you're trying to make.
Sure. So from our perspective, climate change is an existential threat to humanity. And energy storage, we believe, is a critical part to solving climate change. And the technology around that has improved substantially in recent years. However, it's often cost prohibitive to install energy storage, even today. We're interested in partnering with folks maybe in non-traditional energy sectors or maybe the traditional oil and gas folks, because our solution actually brings down the total installed cost of energy storage dramatically. And this actually helps us to enable widespread adoption of renewable energy. And many of the oil and gas folks, at least that we've spoken to, are looking for ways to enable that adoption and looking for ways to do it in the most cost-effective way.
Sorry, and maybe Matthew, just speaking about so just thinking about how the industry itself is necessary to kind of scale what Utility Global is doing. And I know you guys have been around for, you spoke a little bit about starting off based on technology out of the 50s and kind of, starting Utility Global kind of recently since then. What changes have you seen in the industry as a whole regarding the kind of embrace of the energy transition?
Yeah, of course. My background actually was in a lot of major oil companies, and I think the motivation is there. Economically, I could probably talk for a long period of time, but there's a lot of drivers to look at what the future of energy holds from a sustainability perspective. With regard to the startups here, I think the biggest thing that these players can provide is deployments, right? Proof of concept. And having been on the other side of the fence as a venture capital investor, running a major oil company's venture arm, I know how difficult that can be to drive adoption internally, but it's absolutely instrumental. It's the lifeline for bringing this technology to market. In our company, and I'm sure all the companies here, there's no exception, that support you provide is more important than the dollars and cents, because when you have technologies that can change the world, getting them out there in the marketplace, getting that brand reputation, getting those tests that can drive further adoption is more important than early stage revenues. And sometimes that can be the difference between a company being a huge success like Hall Labs has had, with $750 million in exits in recent years, or when ending up as a failure. So I would just encourage everyone on the line that your support is massively impactful and very much appreciated, and utility for sure. And I think every company here would love to participate in some pilots with you all.
Yeah, thanks for that. And also just as a reminder, kind of snowballing off of that, if any of our partners or any other audience members have a question, please post them in the chat box. And just jumping into the chat box, I see we have a quick question for Jen, asking what is the range where your solution can today be economically attractive? For example, a range from kilowatt small commercial photovoltaic systems to why large commercial systems, and what your sweet spot is.
Sure. So just to answer that question, right now we're targeting commercial rooftops, and we're looking in the range of, say, sub 1 megawatt hour. That would be what our initial sweet spot is. We do have plans to grow beyond that, but I would say that's where our current range is.
Got it. Thanks. And I want to ask Bill a question kind of off of that a little bit, and just kind of speak about more the energy storage system that Electrochaea has, and maybe just how that system, maybe a case study or maybe just kind of some customer engagement.
Sure. Thanks for your question. So Electrochaea produces renewable methane by taking CO2 that has that's otherwise an off gas that can be from anaerobic digesters or from flue gas, combines that with hydrogen. It's typically developed with an electrolyzer at scales typically starting at 1 megawatt and higher. The storage system that we use is what we refer to as the largest battery in the world, which is the gas grid. So the gas that is produced from our bioreactor is grid quality. Our two commercial pilot plants in Switzerland and Denmark have produced gas that is injected onto the grid and is ready for use as a direct drop-in for fossil natural gas. So this gives us a great opportunity to leverage the existing gas infrastructure. Our gas can also be deployed immediately to transportation applications or repurposed to generate electricity at a different time and place. So it has that time shift capability of batteries, and we're seeing significant interest in markets that have provided for value of carbon attributes and value of storage, such as in North America under the low carbon fuel standard credits for the California transportation market, as well as a lot of tariff regimes in west coast of California and in the province of Quebec.
And touching on that a little bit, I think a lot of consumers in the world today, we know that there is a large kind of push in the energy industry towards alternative batteries and moving away from lithium ion. And how important would you say it is for consumers to kind of gain a deeper education about lithium ion batteries and kind of why there is a need to kind of move away from it? Do you have any kind of like?
Yeah, so I mean, I'd say we have a very broad view of the different technologies that are available for energy storage, and I think to suggest that lithium-ion batteries don't play a role is probably not not realistic or even a solid conclusion. The limitations that we think about for battery storage is that at large scale there are limitations about with regard to charge and discharge cycles that make large scale batteries a less optimal solution for taking renewable energy that may be available today through, for example, energy that's otherwise curtailed. So in California, for example, there's been 1.4 terawatts of renewable energy curtailed so far this year. So that's wind and solar assets that have been shut down, not because the wind wasn't blowing or the sun wasn't shining, but because that energy wasn't needed to balance the grid. And so the California Independent System Operator says shut down. That's energy that could be stored in renewable natural gas and then used as an alternative to meet peak demand. And this is a model that we think is going to apply not just in California or for the California market, but across certainly across North America, which is my focus. And we're seeing similar acknowledgement of these sort of value of time shifting in Northern Europe as well.
Got it. And Matthew, just kind of looking about Utility Global, how have you seen energy storage been kind of accepted, or what has been some of the biggest hurdles when addressing the energy industry?
Yeah, well, energy storage is becoming more and more pressing as renewables are adopted at a greater rate. We see the cost of renewables dropping, but we see electricity prices associated with higher renewable adoption going up, and it's hard to equate the two. And really, Joe kind of hit the nail on the head. The issue at hand is the fact that you have backup, you have storage, you have backup, grids needed, you have distribution and transmission. And so we see energy storage as a huge enabler for renewable technology going forward. And, Utility Global wants to play in that space. We have, our reversible solid oxide electrolyzers that can both, store electricity in the form of hydrogen and then reproduce it back to the grid in the form of electricity. Obviously SOECs being the highest efficiency devices out there for that. And I think, Joe alluded that lithium has a place, but we don't see lithium ion on a grid scale storage level. There just isn't enough lithium on the face of the earth known to man that you could mine it and have it have an impact at that level. And we do also think, like Joe, that reversible gas storage is a huge component of the future. We actually have a big project with a major oil company that we just applied to. It's still confidential, but it's a very, very large project in that sense.
Well, congratulations. And Kelly, just kind of pivoting a little bit, I have a question for you kind of regarding the carbon. So I know you in Charm Industrial's kind of solution, our aim is to really lower our carbon dioxide emissions, return to those original levels. So I'd love to kind of know from you a little bit more about what how deeply intertwined that kind of topic area is in a lot of the political landscape, and how that has shaped how you've addressed, that different corporations or communities or municipalities when discussing your solution.
Yeah, that's interesting. I would say that it's heavily intertwined with the political landscape, and we're really excited to see some of the new benchmarks and different initiatives coming forward with the potentially new administration, or hopefully new administration, with regards to climate change. I think when it comes to the different municipalities and kind of how we're thinking about it, we're trying to reduce CO2 concentration in the atmosphere profitably, and to show that it's possible to have clean energy be a business that is definitely viable. And I think a lot of the municipalities are getting very excited about that. We are working with a lot of the Midwestern different states like Kansas and Oklahoma for testing out our new injections. And that has been received really well, and we have a lot of traction there. So even if those states may not like initially look at someone who's like a adopter of clean energy, the different environmental groups there are really excited about our progress, and are moving a lot towards things like wind and different things for the electrical grid as well.
That's awesome. And are you working in international environments as well, or largely domestic?
Initially, we're looking domestically, just for kind of ease of regulation, and so that we can be close to the problem. And so then we'll kind of look more internationally once we test it out here.
And last question for you is, are you working with utilities and oil and gas partners alike, or are you focusing in one area?
Yeah, so our work with different like oil and gas companies can really be focused on either so we have two different things. For the hydrogen and the steel production, that's where we can really work on like deployments and getting on the roadmaps for some of these larger companies and thinking more forward. For the negative emission side of things, it's been more voluntary credits, and that's more through tech companies who want to have sustainable goals. And that's really accelerated us because they're willing to buy at a higher price point and invest in our technology. And then hopefully we can drive down that cost curve accordingly.
Got it. Awesome. Well, thanks so much, Kelly. And I see that, Jen, I left off one last question from Brian in our chat here, and he wants to know, is there a lower range?
Sure. I'd probably say 50 kilowatt hour, just to give a lower limit on that.
Awesome. Well, on that, thank you all so much for joining me today, and thanks for just kind of discussing the future of hydrogen and the future of our gas industry and energy industry, and hopefully, we can see something bright and shiny in the end of the decade here. So thanks so much, all of you, and hopefully everyone will join you all in the networking session soon. I know I will. So thanks again, and I'll look forward to chatting with you all again soon.
Doreen.
Thank you.
Thanks.
All right. So, yep, definitely. Oh, Andre, I didn't even see you were on there. I apologize.
It's okay. I'm here.
Okay, well, we'll definitely catch you in the remote session. I truly apologize that you didn't have a second. Do you have anything you'd like to throw into the audience?
Nope, don't worry. I'll catch them in the networking if anybody wants to talk to me.
All right, well, thanks so much. All right, well, with that, we're going to roll into the next portion of our energy summit today. This will be the last few startups that we have. So we will start with Chris Card. Chris will be taking the stage today to tell us about what he's been working on and building for the future of electric vehicle infrastructure across Europe. By delivering a ultra low cost retrofit for electric vehicle charging. So without further ado, let's hear Chris tell us more about HeyCharge.
Hi, I'm Chris, founder and CEO of HeyCharge. We're a Munich, Germany-based startup developing ultra low cost and easy to install electric vehicle charging solutions for apartment buildings. Let's start with a few facts. 42% of Europe, that's 187 million people, live in apartment buildings. And to hit EU carbon neutrality targets in 2050, all new cars sold by the early 2030s must be electric. And already in September, electric car registrations in Europe overtook diesel registrations for the first time. These customers are coming, and many of them live in apartment buildings. So why, you might ask, is it so hard to install EV charging in an apartment building? In a word, cost. Current solutions cost roughly 3,000 euros per parking space, and that might work for today's Tesla drivers, but as 25,000 euro EVs begin to democratize electric mobility, we need something better, cheaper, and more scalable. The legacy systems available today rely on expensive chargers, internet connections at each charger, and another expensive central server that ties them all together. This drives costs through the entire system lifecycle, including hardware, installation, and operation. HeyCharge recognized this as our core opportunity, and so we invented SecureCharge, our patent-pending technology to enable EV chargers with no internet connection. We securely relay data through our app running on the user's mobile device, and this results in cheaper chargers, plug-and-play installation, and no internet operating costs. More importantly, the better user experience because it works underground and offline, which happens to be exactly where we find apartment building parking. Here you see our first SecureCharge-enabled, ultra-low-cost Wallbox in action. All communication is local between the phone and the charger, and at the same time, our backend is able to securely manage access to chargers and receive secure billing data back from those chargers. We also developed HeyCharge Home, a software platform to manage networks of chargers on a property, including an admin console for the property manager, and apps for drivers to access their assigned charger. HeyCharge Home works with any combination of old legacy chargers, as well as our own SecureCharge devices, allowing us to begin deploying the product with our most eager customers this year, and extending and upgrading sites with our own SecureCharge hardware next year. Between our software platform, our hardware platform, and our SecureCharge technology connecting everything together, we can offer a complete vertically integrated solution. We're planning to raise a 1.5 million to 2 million euro seed round in the first half of 2021, allowing us to transition from limited to scalable commercial operation. At the same time, we're very interested in B2B partnerships with the utility, mobility, and retail sectors. If I've caught your interest, please reach out at hello@heycharge.io. Thank you.
Great, thanks, Chris. All right, next up on the stage, we have the CEO and founder of VIA, Candace, and to tell us more about how they turn electric vehicles into the core enablers of clean and resilient electricity grids. All right.
At VIA, we optimize EV charging to lower costs, ensure the greenest charge, reduce battery degradation, and deliver new revenues through grid services. We've established a number of strategic partners and customers who are excited about our platform and believe in the value we provide. Before I founded VIA, I worked in innovative clean tech startups for over 15 years, covering residential solar, utility wind, and grid operations. Additionally, the VIA team consists of multidisciplinary experts and industry leaders in artificial intelligence, electric mobility, software development, and grid operations. In the next 5 years, in North America and Europe, we're going to see growth from 3 million EV chargers to 12 million EV chargers. This represents a significant increase in energy demand and consequently a huge impact on the grid and the environment. If we don't optimize EV charging by 2025, new EVs from just North America and Europe will add almost 80 million tons of carbon emissions a year. Yet in most cases, VIA reduced costs and emissions by 50% while still delivering full charge and excellent customer experience. The VIA platform works by forecasting and optimizing EV charging events. First, our AI predicts the charging event, predicts the loads and the flexibility within that event. Then we optimize the charging to reduce the cost, to smooth the peak loads, to manage battery health, and to deliver the greenest charge. We provide these benefits not only to EV charging sites and EV fleet operators, but also to grid operators and utilities. VIA platform provides utility insights through monitoring and forecasting services, as well as an aggregator. Our solution is hardware agnostic, so it can integrate with any enabled EVSE or EV. Our technology is based on over 270,000 charging sessions across 420 chargers from both public and private data sets and deployments. Our partners and customers choose BIA because they see real value in our products and also real value in our approach. We start with a data services engagement to manage and cleanse their data to gain insights and provide business intelligence and monetization opportunities. Then we integrate cloud to cloud our optimized charging so they can quickly start to see cost reductions. Finally, with our forecasting capabilities, we provide a path for efficient expansion of charging sites, as well as providing new revenues from grid services. We really believe that the intersection of energy and transport is the most exciting space to deliver innovative AI for clean tech. We believe it'll enable incredible growth and efficiencies over the next 10 years. By 2030, our calculations show that this is at least worth $50 billion in just North America and Europe. We're currently raising $1 million. With this, we'll grow our team, commercially scale our products, and deliver long-term licensing revenues. Thank you for taking the time to learn more about BIA. I hope to hear from you soon.
Great. Thank you, Candace. I look forward to chatting with you soon. Next up, we have the co-founder of Electric Fish, Anurag, who is here to tell us more about their extreme fast charging stations for large-scale applications to bring about net zero emissions miles to electric vehicle driving.
I'm Anurag from Electric Fish, and let me tell you about an upcoming change in two major energy industries, electricity utilities and gasoline wholesaling. There will be 100% electric vehicles or EVs by 2035 in California. This means building more than 50,000 chargers needing up to 15 gigawatt hours of peak load every year. This market will grow to more than 200 billion at an energy storage need of 62.5 gigawatt hours in California alone. Who could support the capacity needs of the grid? Which industry is the best place to capture this upcoming market? Let me rephrase. Could we put EV chargers at gas stations? As a consumer, you could go to the same vendor, stop for the same amount of time, and shop for convenience goods, all while driving electric. But there are multiple problems. First, utilities are unable to serve this peaky load of EV charging, as shown in blue, with the times of the day. Second, the high initial investment of equipment requires a field-proof prediction of the rate of return. Our solution is a network of decentralized batteries integrated with ultra-fast chargers, delivering up to 100 miles of range in 5 minutes of cap charging. The energy buffer in batteries averages the peak load of EV charging, making us a grid asset providing resource adequacy, unlike being a liability like most of our competitors. This really accelerates the time to market for our deployments. Further, to deliver on our return, we built an AI siting tool that uses data sets like EV penetration, grid capacity to create hotspots to seek deployments. For Phillips 66, we use our tool to get locations of the 10 best stores in Bay Area. These are places with minimal charges nearby, accounting for an already stressed grid. This is our deployment in Los Angeles. Using a utility connection of single-phase 100 amps, we can serve 20 vehicles every day, making a break-even in 4 years. The property owner gets a 10% profit split on EV charging as return for real estate. Having built our product for safety, we own any liability associated with usage and deployment. We are experts in battery technology, robust hardware development, and policy making, and our advisory board has domain expertise in automotive and electricity space. We are currently raising $2 million for an enthusiastic investor to lead our pre-seed now and seed round in Q1 2021. Please join us to bring true freedom to driving electric.
Great, thank you so much, Anurag. Moving on, we'll now hear from our last startup of the afternoon, Wallbox. Austin Wood is here to tell us more about Wallbox's mission to design, develop, and manufacture intelligent charging and energy management systems to accelerate the transition to efficient and sustainable transportation. So let's give Austin our attention for the last few minutes of the startup portion for the event today.
Hi, everyone. My name is Austin Wood, and I'm the Manager of Corporate Development and Investor Relations here at Wallbox Chargers. Wallbox is a company that is dedicated to unblocking the adoption of EVs today to unlock the potential of more sustainable energy tomorrow through smarter, simpler charging and energy management solutions for all. Our co-founder is Enrique Asuncion, who is a Tesla alum. And Enrique got tired of the chargers on the market that resembled more of electronic appliances than consumer electronics. You know, these chargers were bulky, had a ton of wires, large components with big plastic boxes that surrounded them. And they looked more like the electronic boxes that you'd have in your house than the consumer electronics that you'd have in your pocket. So Enrique set out to create a smarter, simpler EV charging solution that opens up new ways to control, use, and share your energy. You can see that all of our chargers are some of the most compact chargers on the market for their power output. We have both AC and DC chargers. Our chargers function in home, business, and public environments. And we also have our own energy management software. And we recently acquired a public charging platform to accompany our newest product, which is a public charger that is about 66 kilowatts. Our home and business chargers range from 7.3 kilowatts to 22 kilowatts. We raised a Series A that was about 23 million earlier this year. This was led by Iberdrola, which is the second largest utility in Europe, and CIA Ventures, which is a leading venture capital fund here in Europe and also in Latin America. We've been growing quite quickly, even despite coronavirus. We've almost doubled from our sales last year. We did about 8.8 million in sales last year, and we'll finish this year around 22 million. You know, we had virtually no sales in April and May because of coronavirus, but then had a record-breaking June, and then which made for a record-breaking Q2. And then we almost doubled the sales that we did in Q2 and Q3. We are the only global charger manufacturer with a presence in the USA, Europe, and China. Our headquarters are based in Barcelona, but in 2018, we launched in China through a joint venture with FAWSN, the second largest automobile OEM in the world. And then we also launched our office in the US in 2019, and we are approaching getting our UL certification and seeing the first US sales in just a couple weeks. We sell through a couple of different channels. We sell to automobile OEMs, to utilities, to e-mobility providers, which we categorize as installers, distributors, and resellers of energy solutions. These are the people installing your solar panels, energy packs, et cetera. And then we also sell online through Amazon and our e-commerce channel. Our goal is to connect 1 million home, business, and public intelligent EV chargers to the grid by 2025, and we hope that you will be part of it. Thank you very much and take care.
Awesome. Thanks, Chris. Okay, so if Chris, Candice, Anurag, and Austin could unmute, we'll have our last 15-minute panel Q&A session for this afternoon. And if, you know, again, to all the panel members and audience members, if you'd like to post any questions for the startups in the Q&A box, I'd be happy to ask them. So awesome. I see Anurag here. Just making sure I don't miss anyone. Waiting for Candice, and I think just Candice is who we're waiting for. If you're here, Candice, unmute, say something. If not, I'll just jump into it and hopefully you join us at some point. I think she might be not available. I think I just got a message, but anywho, pleasure to meet you three. Thank you so much for being with us here today. And each of you bringing something unique to the electric vehicle stage. So I would love to kind of just start off with, actually with Chris, based on your presentation that we just had, which is just fresh in our minds, I would love to kind of get your take on what you think was the reason that really drove those Q2, Q3 numbers that you saw during the pandemic, and why you think there was such a sudden surge.
Sorry, Noreen, are you speaking to Chris or to me?
Oh, Austin, sorry. I'm looking at Chris and speaking to Austin. I'm so
No,
sorry.
no worries. No, it's all good. I think in Europe, we're riding some strong momentum. So in Europe, there's been over 123 billion of subsidies that have been announced by the European government. And these are subsidies that are being directly applied to electric vehicles, to electric vehicle chargers, installation of these chargers, et cetera. So Europe is really doubling down on renewable energy as it comes to electric vehicles and the electric vehicle charging infrastructure. So that we've also been in the market since 2015. So we're starting to develop some brand recognition and really starting to create kind of a foothold in the different markets that we're in throughout Europe. And then, as I mentioned, we're starting to see our first sales in Europe and in China. So we're super excited about the global expansion as well.
Yeah, awesome. Like definitely see the kind of the opportunity across the globe. Really quickly before I ask the question in the chat box, what do you think will be the timeline before you hit that 1 million house mark globally, I guess?
So we hope to get to 1 million chargers by 2025.
Do you feel like we're on pace with that? Does that seem like a...
Yeah, we're in the first, looking at the growth over the first 2 months of this quarter, we're set to hit our 2021 targets, and we have even bigger ambitions for 2022 to 2025. So, and I feel like there's just more and more news coming out about the industry, about different countries banning ICEs and trying more subsidies for electric vehicles. So and luckily or unluckily, there is a change of the guard in the US government as well, which also might go to bolster the charging infrastructure industry. So I think in terms of market trends, things are trending in the right direction for the industry.
Yeah, yes, it's Chris now, really you, I see you shaking your head. Just wanted to kind of get your take on that as well and what you've experienced in terms of the surge towards electric vehicles.
Yeah, I think Austin nailed it from the regulatory side and kind of what governments are doing. And I think there's a real push and a feel like kind of a feeling of a generational opportunity to structurally rebuild the economy. I think we waiting.
A lot of static on your end. I'm not sure if it's your speaker or what's happening, but I'll give you a second to reboot that.
How about this?
Better, thank you.
Sorry, I had my microphone plugged into the charger. Sorry about that. It's okay. I'll start over. I think Austin really nailed it in terms of kind of covering the regulatory picture. And I can kind of just jump onto that and say that I think there's this perception that we have kind of a generational opportunity to basically restructure the economy around technologies that make the world a better place. But also just in your day-to-day life, you can see it. You can see how like March and April gave the world a chance to kind of sit back and reflect about what kind of world we want to live in. And I think kind of, just at a personal level, you see people buying into these technologies, in a way and at a velocity that we just haven't seen before. So it's coming from both sides, but, it's really exciting to see.
Yeah, and I noticed also in your presentation that you kind of targeted the European Union as your first kind of case study before moving out. Is there any reason for that?
Well, I mean, we sit in Germany. We understand the market in Germany and surrounding countries the best. But by no means do we think that the problems we solve are limited to Germany. We're clearly an earlier stage startup than Wallbox, and so we're just a little bit more focused.
Awesome, yeah. And then really quick question for Anurag in our chat here is how many number of units have been deployed? And well, I guess I'll let you answer that I'll just ask the whole question. You can just tie it all together. Number of units deployed, and also 4-year payback period seems a bit long. How can you reduce that under a year?
Great, thanks. So we are working on our first pilot deployment that is going to go live in Los Angeles this February. And we are looking for 10 more pilots next year. That is going to be our seed raise to do up to 10 deployments and prove out the course code data citing model, which we have. And about the payback, great question there. We have been actively working on it. through our due diligence processes as we raise our pre-seed. We have been raising our pre-seed since 15th October. We have revisited the cost of the capital hardware because we are building most of it in-house. So we have cut the cost of hardware by up to 1/3, and that has helped us reduce our ROI to up to 18 months. Still, we know lesser than 1 year would be lucrative to do it, but we cannot be completely charging our EV owners. We have to be competitive in the market. So yeah, whoever asked the question, I'd love to explore how exactly we get it less than 1 year.
Awesome. Great. Thanks so much for that answer. And really quick, I have another question for you, Austin. 18% sales via utilities. Do you expect that to change over the next few years? And also, what are your thoughts on vehicle to grid?
Yeah, so it's a great question. I think it really depends on how the market evolves. When we're looking at the market, we're seeing a lot of push actually in the B2C segment. So through our e-commerce sites and through Amazon, and then also through distributors and resellers that we're working with. So it seems like, range anxiety is decreasing, prices are becoming more affordable and kind of more attainable for EV drivers. And then additionally, there's a general sentiment that EV drivers want, or just drivers in general want to be more sustainable. So we think that this is kind of fueling a push actually to more B2C. And I think there'll be kind of a fight over the OEM and the utility segments. OEMs are trying to get into the space, utilities are trying to own the space and really own that end consumer. So we'll see. And then in terms of V2G, it's still fairly early days. So Wallbox has a bidirectional charger. It's called Quasar. I think we are one of the first companies with a bidirectional charger on the market. There's a couple out there on the worldwide stage as of today, but it's still early days in terms of the number of OEM models that it connects with, and then but I think there's 16 or 20 new vehicles next year that have been announced that will be integrating with vehicle to grid charging. So it's coming kind of as fast as the EV wave is coming, and I think the next 2 to 3 years will be really important for V2Gs.
Awesome, thank you. And Anurag, again, coming back to you, can you maybe tell us more how Electric Fish provides resilience to different communities?
Yeah, so I'll take this opportunity to explain this new concept of resource adequacy. As we are experiencing more and more EVs on the road, grid cannot support it, and as we experience more and more blackouts, there's new regulation which is coming in which you have to have some local power. Utilities need to have some local power, which is termed as local resource adequacy. In case the grid fails, then you have some power to back up your emergency services, and the vision is to go to a level in which you can power the communities as long as the power is out. So using our in-house algorithm, we use some energy just to take it to EV charging, but we have some energy which is always reserved to provide grid backup. And we have our utility patent in using all of these units in tandem together to create supply to the whole community microgrid or a substation to provide backup power to communities.
Got it. Awesome. Thanks for that. And I think we have a few more minutes left of the panel. So I just wanted to also ask about, in general, I think all three of you are kind of working in the electric vehicle space. So what do you feel is, maybe something that each of you can bring to the table that really is distinct and also can work together, to bring about the electric vehicle revolution that we're hoping to have soon?
I'll just jump on quick. As compared to the super fast charging which we're trying to build as compared to level 1 and level 2, our approach is trying to, and everybody has in a space, but we are trying to bring this user experience which is like gasoline. We do not give the full amount of charge. We want to do ultra fast charging sessions which is like gasoline, and that is our go-to-market as well. So we are trying to fill a specific niche in which people who do not have access to level 1 and level 2 can go and charge their vehicles. And I'll let Chris and Austin jump in.
I guess I'll jump in next then. Yeah, I think, we've built a complete end-to-end platform for basically managing chargers and then the chargers to manage, as well as a unique communication system to connect them all. But the thing we're really focused on is that communication system, because that lowers the total cost of ownership for the whole system. And I think that's really the unique contribution we want to provide. That's the core of our IP. And we've kind of only built the whole end-to-end platform because you need to have that to demonstrate the system working. But we really see ourselves as hopefully building an ecosystem and licensing out the technology, possibly even standardizing it in some way to bring the benefit of this very low cost infrastructure to the overall electric vehicle charging infrastructure world.
Awesome. I guess we'll throw it back to you to wrap us up here.
Yeah. You know, for Wallbox, I think it's really all about innovation. The reason our founder got into the space was because he wanted to make a charger that looked and felt more like the smartphones we have in our pocket, as I said in our pitch. And so this went from adding features like Bluetooth to creating a bidirectional charger. And now, as I mentioned, we're also launching our public charger, which will be at a very affordable price point. It'll be about half the cost of some of the competitors on the market right now, and it'll be much more reliable than a lot of the solutions out there. So for us, it's really about finding ways to continue to innovate within the space, whether that's bringing kind of the design into the 21st century or adding additional features that, you know, keep moving the industry forward.
Awesome. Well, I really appreciate the time you three took to spend and, you know, answer our questions. I look forward to, you know, meeting you all again in the networking session. Thanks for giving us a, you know, really positive note to end on, and hopefully we can all be using all three of your charging solutions very soon. Thank you again, and we look forward to chatting with you. And that concludes basically all of our startup portion and panels for this afternoon. Thank you to all the panelists and startups. Truly appreciate all the work you've put in this whole entire batch, and then also just being with us and, you know, chatting with us today. And I look forward to hopefully everyone signs on to Remo, which I'll chat about in a second. Before getting there, I also want to give a huge shout out to our mentors who took the time to chat with each of our startups and really help just shed some insights on how to navigate their path forward. So I really appreciate all of your help that you guys lent to us over this past, I guess, 12 weeks or so. And last but not least, as I said, thank you to all the audience members for joining us today. Thank you for spending the time. And please be sure to, if you're interested, we have a few more events this week. On the 18th, we'll have our FinTech and travel startups. And then on the 19th, we'll have the InsurTech and health portion of our expo this year. And feel free to, you know, register to attend the event on the link above. And then the networking remote link is on the link below. And then here is our networking QR code on the right to join the networking Remo session. The link is at the bottom left, and the QR code is right there for you to scan. Make sure that you all remember that our energy networking portion of the event is on the second floor. The first floor will be mobility. And really quickly, I want to make sure to note that we will have 3 international startups joining us during this session. Definitely head over, chat with them. It will be Greenwell, Skyworks, and Vernect, all also in the energy sector, but from our international batch. So I hope you all have a few minutes to chat with them. And again, thank you all. You've been a terrific audience. My name's Noreen. I'm on the Ventures team. I really appreciate the time you spent with me, and hope to catch you all in the networking session.